Hello. I'd like to welcome all of you all to this celebration of intellectual freedom. I'm Barbara Stripling, president of the Freedom to Read Foundation. For the first time ever, we're holding this joint ceremony to honor the recipients of Intellectual Freedom Awards from the Freedom to Read Foundation, the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable of ALA, and the iSchool at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Tonight, we celebrate those who have stood up for intellectual freedom, even in the face of challenging situations. I'd also like to take just a moment to recognize those unsung librarians who have been denied employment rights or experienced discrimination or job loss because of their personal characteristics or their support for intellectual freedom. ALA is able to offer a small measure of support to these librarians through grants from the Leroy C. Merit Fund. Thank you so much for joining us tonight in our celebration of intellectual freedom. I'd like to introduce our key opening speaker, Julius C. Jefferson Jr., who's president of the American Library Association and who has been a strong champion of intellectual freedom throughout his career. Julius?
And thank you so much, Barbara. From one president to a past president of the American Library Association, and to a past president of the Freedom to Read Foundation, to the president of the Freedom to Read Foundation, I thank you so much. And I want to welcome you all to a celebration of intellectual freedom. The values of intellectual freedom, the First Amendment, and privacy are essential to our democracy. The organizations represented here today work steadfastly to protect and uphold these values through education, litigation, and advocacy. It's no coincidence that the demands for intellectual freedom, social justice, and civil rights have overlapped throughout the history of our country. A focus on the intersection of social justice and intellectual freedom is a cornerstone of my ALA presidency. I'm glad to say that those values and the ways they work together will be seen tonight as we learn about the award recipients who we are honoring. Although we in the library community honor the dynamic synergy between intellectual freedom and social justice, we recognize that those values continue to be challenged in our society. We feel the tension between these topics when we learn that one of our recipients today was challenged for simply stating that Black lives matter. Yet another recipient failed to receive tenure despite, or perhaps because of, being an author of the 1619 Project. We feel this tension when we see our colleagues and library staff accomplish so much in their careers, yet still get ostracized for being their authentic selves if they identify as something other than cis or straight. We feel the tension when YA authors are challenged because their books are inclusive of LGBTQ plus people. Keeping our democracy healthy is a priority, not just in 2021, but always. Intellectual freedom and the freedom of speech protected by the First Amendment are essential to that health. The people we are celebrating have upheld these ideals. They have each dealt with challenges or have dedicated their words, work, volunteer hours, or financial support to uphold intellectual freedom. We are aware of the stress that comes with these challenges. So today, we take a moment to rest and honor the award recipients for meeting those challenges with courage and vision. We also need to honor the organizations behind these awards. the University of Illinois School of Information Sciences, where the Downs Award was established, is a longtime advocate for intellectual freedom. LIS students of the U of I have opportunities to take intellectual freedom courses as a part of their degree. The Freedom to Read Foundation has been working on behalf of librarians and others to protect the First Amendment for over 50 years. Because Freedom to Read Foundation is a nonprofit, the staff and trustees may also litigate on behalf of First Amendment issues, as well as educate and advocate. The Freedom to Read Foundation Board of Trustees includes representatives from each of ALA's roundtables. This ensures that librarians representing all forms of library work can bring their voices and concerns to the Freedom to Read Foundation and carry back important information. Finally, the ALA Intellectual Freedom Roundtable is the intellectual freedom hub for members of the American Library Association. IFRT keeps intellectual freedom issues at the forefront by actively engaging in advocacy and education for all ALA members. 3 of the awards you will learn about in a few minutes are brought to us through the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable. So I can't wait to hear about the awards, the honorees, and the work that is taking place right now. Our hope for tomorrow and the days to come is that those entering our field will understand the ethics we hold as librarians, that the First Amendment, intellectual freedom and privacy will be taught in schools, that social justice is strong and all people have barrier-free access to information and to the right to express their voices. The people who are honored at this event and those who nominated them and work with these groups will carry this forward. You, everyone who has joined us today, you all will carry this work forward. So thank you to each one of you for being honored, for the work you are doing. Thank you to those who work with me at ALA, LIS schools, including U of I, and all the others around the country, and both IFRT and the Freedom to Read Foundation for being here. Thank you all for your work and your commitment to intellectual freedom. And now, let's celebrate.
The 2020 recipient of the Downs Intellectual Freedom Award is Amy Dodson. Amy Dodson was selected for this award by the iSchool at Illinois faculty because of her support and commitment to the value and necessity of equity, diversity, and inclusion as part of the library's mission and service. Dodson, director of the Douglas County, Nevada Public Library, faced enormous criticism last year for posting a diversity statement on the library's Facebook page that included the line, quote, "We support hashtag Black Lives Matter," end quote. The Douglas County Sheriff equated this statement with the Black Lives Matter movement and as perceived by him as supporting violence against law enforcement. He posted a letter on the sheriff's office's Facebook page stating this and adding that the library staff should no longer call 911 for help with any disturbances in the library. An investigation of Dodson and the library ensued. Dodson steadfastly supported the need for diversity initiatives while working to ensure the safety and comfort of her staff during this investigation period. The iSchool at Illinois and the Freedom to Read Foundation are most pleased to present the 2020 Downs Intellectual Freedom Award to Amy Dodson.
Hello, and thank you so much. Last summer, my staff and I proudly wrote a diversity statement for our library. And as you just heard, the statement led to a public declaration by the sheriff that the library would no longer receive 911 service because of our support for Black Lives Matter. The library then received hundreds of hostile and threatening emails, letters, and phone calls, including death threats. But I'm happy to report that we received twice as many letters of support, encouragement, and inspiration from all over the country. I've always been committed to free and equal access to public libraries. Libraries bring people together. I never dreamed that a diversity statement would bring about such anger and hatred. Talking about equity and diversity should never result in threats or anger. And although this experience was very difficult, it highlights the great necessity of public libraries now more than ever. I'd really like to thank Deborah Caldwell Stone, Julius Jefferson, and the American Library Association for your support. But most of all, I would like to thank the courageous and amazing library staff that I'm privileged to lead. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Trish Hull, and I was chair of the 2020 Eli M. Oboler Memorial Award Committee. The Intellectual Freedom Roundtable has announced the winner of the 2020 Eli M. Oboler Memorial Award, which recognizes the best published work in the area of intellectual freedom. The 2020 award goes to Henry Reichman for his book, The Future of Academic Freedom, published in 2019 by Johns Hopkins University Press. In selecting the future of academic freedom, the Oboler Award Selection Committee chose this work because of its high literary quality, outstanding references and research, and the importance of its message. Something we all agreed on was that the content is not just for academic libraries, but libraries and institutions of every kind who deal with intellectual freedom and censorship. We gave it high marks for interest, readability, and currency, as many institutions are grappling with these issues regularly. The author and recipient of the award, Henry Reichman, is a professor emeritus of history at California State University, East Bay. He has a BA from Columbia and a PhD in Russian European history from Berkeley. He has volunteered for over 30 years with ALA, particularly in intellectual freedom areas. He has also served since 2012 as the chair of the American Association of University Professors Committee on Academic Freedom and Tenure. The Eli M. Oboler Memorial Award is a $500 cash award and a certificate. It was named for Eli M. Oboler, the extensively published Idaho State University librarian, known as a champion of intellectual freedom, who demanded the dismantling of all barriers to freedom of expression. The award has been offered biennially since 1986 and will begin being offered annually in 2022.
I have to start myself. Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I want to thank the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable for this award. In 1980, I joined the staff for a year of the ALA as Assistant Director of the Office for Intellectual Freedom. I actually had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know a little bit Eli Oberler. So this award is rather special to me. The essays in the future of academic freedom all appeared in publications of the American Association of University Professors. And the book would not be possible without the work of that organization's now over century-long defense of academic freedom. Finally, I want to mention that the book is dedicated to my former professor, Reginald Zelnick, a major supporter in the early 1960s of the free speech movement at University of California, Berkeley, but also to Judith M. Krug, the founding director of ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom, in many respects, a person without whom I never could have written this book, never would have become involved in the work in defense of intellectual freedom. Judith is a legend, of course, in the library community, and we miss her terribly. And I want to dedicate this award to her memory. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shane Rupenrein, and I am the outgoing chair of the Coalition Building Committee. On behalf of my committee, it is my honor to present the Gerald Hodges Intellectual Freedom Chapter Relations Award for 2020 and 2021. This award recognizes an organization that has developed a strong multi-year ongoing program or a single one-year project that exemplifies support for intellectual freedom, patron confidentiality, and anti-censorship efforts. The award is named after Gerald Hodges, an ALA staff member from 1989 to 2006. Chapter relations and intellectual freedom were his passions, and he willed a portion of his estate to support those efforts. Recipients will receive an award of $1,000 and a citation. First, I'm honored to present the 2020 Gerald Hodges Award to the Intellectual Freedom Committee of the Connecticut Library Association. The IFC identified emerging issues with LinkedIn Learning, formerly known as lynda.com, and initiated a national conversation within the profession on the topic of privacy and the appropriate use of patron information. Beginning with statewide discussion, then a widely read blog post by IFC Chair Samantha Lee, the advocacy efforts they initiated inspired a campaign that resulted in LinkedIn Learning changing its registration terms for library users and dropping the requirement to create a LinkedIn profile to access the service. The award committee noted the broad impact of their ongoing efforts and widespread support in selecting Connecticut's IFC for the honor. Congratulations.
Hi, folks. I hope I'm not coming in too quiet, but I want to say thank you to the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable. And I want to also recognize the work of Aidan Berman, who, after having seen the blog post and saw the writing on the wall, organized so many librarians and so much support in going after LinkedIn and making sure that they honored our patron privacy policies and our ethics. So thank you to Aidan Berman. Special thank you to my awesome library director, Jason Neely, and my assistant director, Katie Worth, for supporting me as I tried to figure out what it was that LinkedIn was doing and why it wasn't okay. I love the support and appreciation that CLA has given me, especially its president, Tom Piezo, and Lisa Kareem, and now Colleen Bailey, our new president. Thank you very much, everyone.
Just one moment while we make sure we have everything set up that we need to. Just 1 second, please.
For this year, I am honored to present the 2021 Gerald Hodges Award to the Missouri Library Association. Proposed Missouri House Bill number 2044, known as the Parental Oversight of Public Libraries Act, sought to create parental review boards with the authority to remove items that it deemed to be age-inappropriate sexual materials. This bill, if passed, would have withheld state aid from libraries failing to restrict access to materials and imposed criminal penalties on library personnel if they refused to comply with its provisions. This legislation drew national attention, and the MLA responded quickly by working with its members to contact their state legislatures. Through dialogue with public officials, they were effective in highlighting the role of library professionals in selecting materials. Support for the bill declined after state and national advocacy, and it ultimately failed to pass. When a similar bill was introduced in Tennessee, the MLA was able to support their colleagues by sharing strategies and advice. Their work demonstrates the significant efforts that is required to defend intellectual freedom and to keep our communities informed about how library materials are selected. On behalf of the committee, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here representing the Missouri Library Association, and thank you so much to the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable for this award. I'm humbled to be included, especially after hearing about all the incredible work that's happening in support of intellectual freedom everywhere. Like most chapters, I'm sure the Missouri Library Association will always stand against censorship and for the freedom to read. And we are very grateful for the recognition of our efforts to fight this legislation, which really compromised our principles. A special thanks to Dan Brower, who is the chair of our Intellectual Freedom Committee, or our Legislative Committee, Cindy Dudenhofer, who was our president at that time, and Aaron Gray, our past president and legislative expert, as well as the incredible number of Missouri Library Association members who successfully defeated HB 2044, the Parental Oversight of Public Libraries Act. Our leadership team provided incredible coordination and support to its members, and I'm so grateful to everyone for the roles they played. Together, we developed talking points, we scheduled meetings, we made phone calls, we wrote letters, we reached out to other library associations, we reached out to ALA. Thank you to them for all of their support. And our united strengths really created a basis for success, both in this instance, and it gave us a stronger platform for advocacy in the future, and helped us build structures that helped us manage the COVID-19 pandemic as well. So thank you.
I'm Cindy Robinson, Deputy Director of the Illinois Library Association and Chair of the 2020 and 2021 John Phillip Imroth Memorial Award. John Phillip Imroth was a teacher, author, scholar, advocate, and defender of First Amendment rights. He was the founder and first chair of the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable in 1973, and the award was created upon his death in 1979. The Imroth Award honors the courage, dedication, and contribution of a living individual, group, or organization who has set the finest example for the defense and furtherance of the principles of intellectual freedom. The award consists of a citation and $500. It is my honor to present the 2020 and 2021 Imroth Award recipients. The 2020 Imroth Memorial Award recipient is Rebecca Ginsberg, Director of the Education Justice Project, which is based at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. EJP offers education programs to individuals incarcerated at the Danville Correctional Center, a men's medium security state prison. In 2019, more than 200 books were moved from the EJP library at the Correctional Center. The book removal was a part of the Illinois Department of Corrections' growing practice of restricting access to materials focusing on issues of race and prisons. Rebecca championed the fight to restore access to the books and raise awareness of prison censorship by creating the Freedom to Learn campaign, a coalition of 67 organizations and hundreds of individuals. Her work culminated in a special legislative hearing that changed the terms of future book access inside prisons to protect incarcerated readers across the state. She did this knowing that the high stakes for the EJP and her students. Thanks to Rebecca's advocacy, the books were returned to the library, and the Illinois Department of Corrections developed new guidelines for prison libraries. The Intellectual Freedom Roundtable presents the 2020 John Phillip Imroth Memorial Award to Rebecca Ginsberg. Congratulations, Rebecca.
Hello, I assume I'm going to speak now and before the 2021 speaker. So thank you so very much. I am truly honored by this award. Thank you to the American Library Association and to the Imroth Award Committee. Thank you not only on my behalf, but on behalf as well of the Incarcerated Education Justice Project students who are still at Danville Correctional Center. I wish that we were finished. I wish that the struggle was over, but in fact, the struggle isn't over. It continues. Incarcerated people, not only in Illinois, but across the country, continue to struggle and fight for the right to have access to materials and the right to express themselves while incarcerated through publications and other medium. So thank you so much for recognizing that this is a problem. So often what happens in prisons stays in prisons. I am deeply indebted to the fact, deeply indebted to the award for raising the profile of these issues and these concerns. The Freedom to Learn campaign is still struggling with the Department of Corrections and is very hopeful of a successful outcome that will probably take years to establish even stronger protections for incarcerated people and for the programs that seek to provide them access with reading materials. I'm honored to be included among the other awards recipients, and I just want to close by congratulating everybody. The courage and the bravery of people who are being recognized this evening is really humbling. Thank you so very much.
The 2021 Imroth Memorial Award recipient is Martin Garner, Director of Amherst College Library. Martin is an active leader of the ALA Intellectual Freedom Committee, having served the profession in every capacity imaginable. Throughout his career, Martin has served as a trustee and president of the Freedom to Read Foundation, chair of the ALA Intellectual Freedom Committee, chair of the ALA Committee on Professional Ethics, chair of the IFC Privacy Committee, trustee of the Leroy C. Merritt Humanitarian Fund, editor of the 10th edition and co-editor of the 9th edition of the Intellectual Freedom Manual, and the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable counselor. Martin is a tireless and influential champion of intellectual freedom who is well respected by his colleagues. He is a true advocate who is generous with his time, serving as a mentor to countless library workers. And most importantly, so many of us are able to call him a friend. The Intellectual Freedom Roundtable presents the 2021 John Phillip Imroth Memorial Award to Martin Garner. Congratulations, Martin.
I am so honored to receive this award tonight. I want to thank the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable. I want to thank the awards committee. I want to thank the association. And I want to thank everybody who helped me get here. I first started my journey in intellectual freedom by being invited to join the state committee in Colorado by a colleague in library school. She thought I might think it was fun and that I would be interested in a place where we could put our principles in action. I first joined a committee in Intellectual Freedom Roundtable, the Oberler Committee, again at the invitation of a friend who thought that I would like to learn more by reading all of the books that had been submitted for the awards. And that was what got me started. And so what I want to tell everybody who's here today is that it is up to you to invite your friends to get involved and to invite your colleagues to get involved, because this is how we start on this journey. I could not do all of the work that I have done on behalf of intellectual freedom without the support of my family and my friends and my colleagues. I want to thank my husband, Mark, for being patient with all the time that I spent at my desk, answering questions and editing manuscripts and speaking, and not being at my desk, speaking at presentations. I want to thank my colleagues across my career. This has been not just limited to where I'm currently working, though my friends at Amherst have already seen how much time it takes for me to be involved, but also my previous colleagues at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, Kramer Family Library, and at Regis University's Dayton Memorial Library. Without their support and expertise and goodwill for letting me spend time on this work, I would not be able to have spent the time being involved. And it really has been a privilege to learn from my colleagues, to learn from the amazing staff in the American Library Association. I came to this as a novice. I still have so much to learn, and I am just privileged to be part of this community that is so dedicated to intellectual freedom. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joyce Hagan Mcintosh with the Freedom to Read Foundation. Since 1987, members of the Freedom to Read Foundation have nominated and awarded a wonderfully diverse group of people with a place on our Roll of Honor list. It's a Lifetime Achievement Award for intellectual freedom, but not tied to a particular age, time span, or reaching an exact goal. What this achievement does represent is that a person has contributed substantially to the Freedom to Read Foundation and the values of intellectual freedom that we uphold, through adherence to its principles or with substantial monetary support. In some years, we've chosen one individual for this honor, and others we've chosen two people or even members of an organization. This year, we are honoring the 2020 recipient, Kelly Allen with Humble Bundle, and the 2021 recipient, author Roby Harris. Thank you for joining us today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yamika Brown, and I am honored and delighted to be here today to congratulate Kelly Allen on the 2021 Roll of Honor. Thank you, Kelly Allen, for your leadership at Humble Bundle, leading to the launch of hundreds of charitable promotions, linking authors and publishers with readers, and raising over $10 million for charity. Thank you, Kelly, for your work in devising several highly successful fundraising campaigns on behalf of the Freedom to Read Foundation, generating substantial financial support for the Foundation's defense of the freedom to read and its efforts to educate library professionals and the public about the importance of intellectual freedom. Thank you, Kelly, for your work in the publishing industry and for your creation of thoughtful, imaginative campaigns that make a wide range of content available for readers while supporting nonprofit charitable organizations. Thank you, Kelly, for demonstrating your commitment to supporting the mission of the Freedom to Read Foundation and our ability to educate, advocate, and litigate on behalf of intellectual freedom. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, staff, and members, we say congratulations.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this honor. I like to start out to be a little bit lighthearted, and since I like to quib that everything I do is done in a humble day's work. I am truly humbled. However, in all seriousness, I would really like to acknowledge all the other honorees and award recipients today, especially for their bravery. Frankly, it's so moving to see such heroic acts of courage. Thus, I like to accept this award on behalf of my division, which is Humble Books, which is part of the company humblebundle.com. And just real quick, probably a lot of you don't know what Humble Bundle is. We are a San Francisco-based company that we create limited time promotions of books and games and software. To date, Humble has raised over $190 million for charity. I also would like to take this moment and reciprocate my gratitude by acknowledging the Freedom to Read Foundation for 52 years of their very important work as leaders protecting the First Amendment and supporting the rights of libraries across the United States. Here is to another 52 years at least of fighting the good fight for intellectual freedom. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm so honored to introduce the 2021 Freedom to Read Foundation Roll of Honor recipient, author Roby Harris. When speaking with her after sharing that she was receiving this award, Roby noted that she feels librarians are the guardians of democracy. But I want to emphasize today that without authors who are willing to write the truth of all lives and who are willing to keep writing even when they're repeatedly challenged, we would have very little to guard and protect. You, Roby, are a guardian of democracy, and I am thankful for you and the work that you're doing. Here is what we've written on the Roll of Honor plaque that Roby is going to receive from the Freedom to Read Foundation. Thank you, Roby H. Harris, for your 4-decade career as an author for children and adolescents, writing books that honor and respect your young readers' intellect, curiosity, and personhood, through your willingness to write honest and tell the truth about emotions, bodies, and all lives. Thank you, Roby, for your career-long support for the mission and work of the Freedom to Read Foundation. Through your writing and advocacy on behalf of young people's right to truthful and honest information about their bodies and emotions, you give meaning to the principles of intellectual freedom, supporting and upholding First Amendment rights for readers of all ages. Thank you, Roby, for navigating demands to censor your books with tenacity, creativity, and honesty and grace. We admire you for your continuing to write and publish important works for young people despite these challenges. Thank you, Roby, for being a guardian for the right to learn and discover for people of all ages. Your fierce dedication to accuracy and honesty in your writing for young people truly changes lives. This is signed by the current FTRF President, Barbara Stripling, and our Executive Director, Deborah Caldwell-Stone. Thank you, Roby.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, you sound
great.
great.
Hi, I feel wonderful and wonderful about all of you. So I just want to thank you, Joyce, for that lovely introduction. And I want to thank everyone here. I want you to know that I am still so surprised, but also so thrilled and honored to receive the 2021 Freedom to Read Foundation Roll of Honor Award. Thank you, librarians, including all the children's book librarians in the US, Canada, the UK, the Netherlands, Singapore, Mongolia, China, who've stood up for and defended books, including books I have written when they have been challenged or banned. You are in the front lines of standing up for our democracy by providing access to books of all different and even conflicting points of view to children's all ages, so they can choose the books they want to or need to read, even books some adults want banned because of such topics as sexual health, LGBTQ+, and critical race studies. I want to quickly thank Nicole Hannah-Jones for the 1619 project. And I want to thank the late Judith Crew, whom I first met in 1994 when a book I wrote, It's Perfectly Normal, and illustrated by Michael Emberley, was banned. Judith helped me over the years and taught me how to respond to those who did not approve of that book and other books of mine that have been banned. I counted on Judy as books of mine landed on ALA's most banned books list year after year. 2 books of mine were on the top 10 list at the same time. One year I was knocked off being first on that list by the first Harry Potter book. I've been accused of teaching kids the word stupid when a child in a book I wrote says, I don't need a stupid babysitter, never calling the baby stupid, and did that just before her parents go out for the night. A book I wrote about the first hours in a new baby's life in which breastfeeding is shown is in the most loving and caring way. Why was it banned? Some adults felt kindergartners should never see a baby being breastfed, and that might also heard was banned for the fact that the books teach kids that it's fine for them to have sex and babies as early as possible. Not true, not a fact. And the list goes on. It's usually the adults who object, not the children. And here's what Joyce so beautifully talked about. A value I have in my writing is to tell children the truth, backed up by facts and research, no matter what the topic is. Health, science, or the powerful but normal emotions all of us have, including kids of all ages. If we do not tell them the truth in books we write, many will just stop reading our books and turn to something else that does tell the truth. Truthful books, fiction or nonfiction, give all of us, including children of all ages, ways to think and figure out what their values are. My values come through in the topics I choose to write about. One can choose to read my books or not choose to do so. In a democracy, choice gives us freedom. Last but not least, thank you to all those at the Freedom to Read Foundation and also to ALA, and in particular to you, Joyce, who arranged all for me. I cannot keep writing the books I write without all of you, our librarians, and all the other people who've helped me along the way. And giant congratulations to you, Kelly Allen, and all of the other awardees tonight. I'm proud to begin to know all of you. Thank you.
Nice job, Mom. You're on mute. Great job. Mute, I saw it over there.
Good evening, friends. My name is Peter Coyle. I'm the Vice President of the Freedom to Read Foundation, and I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. Kyle Lukoff is the author of When Aidan Became a Brother, which won the Stonewall Book Award in 2020. His newest novel for middle grades, Too Bright to See, was recently published and now has 6-starred reviews. We want to thank Penguin Random House for arranging Kyle's being with us today. His book, Call Me Max, was the center of national attention earlier this year. After it was read aloud to a 3rd grade class at Horizon Elementary School in Murray, Utah, parents complained, and as a result, the school district halted its equity book program. Later, the book appeared on a list in preparation for Read Across America in Texas and was read aloud to a 4th grade class at Forest Trail Elementary in Austin. Parents complained, and the school district responded by saying that the list had not been appropriately reviewed and that the subject of gender identity should be addressed in the classroom with prior oversight and proper caution. And the book contained sensitive material not appropriate to be read aloud to an entire elementary age class. Kyle's books contain important messages of inclusion, acceptance, and discovery. We are pleased and thankful he is with us today to talk about his experiences and share his perspective as both a librarian and an author. So please join me in welcoming Kyle Lukoff.
Thanks, Peter. Can people hear and or see me? Oh, there I am. Hi, everyone. First, congratulations to all of the winners. I'm so grateful that you're out here doing this work. It's an honor to be invited to speak tonight, but it still feels strange to speak at an ALA event as an author, let alone a banned author, because I've spent most of my career on the other sides of that equation. And I know that I wasn't asked to speak to you as a librarian because A, I'm not one anymore, and B, most of you are, but my entire adult life has been books and helping people connect with them in one way or another. So it's hard for me to untangle one of those experiences from the others. And I'm sorry, but I do want to start by telling you about something that happened in September of 2012. I was extremely new to my job as a librarian, a solo librarian at a private school in downtown Manhattan, when 2 moms marched through the door, each of them dangling a Captain Underpants book from their fingers like this, like it was a bag of dog poop. They asked me, well, they told me that their children, who were 1st graders at the time, would not be chucking books like that out in the future. Like I said, I was new to the job, new to the profession, relatively young, and all alone in the library, and also anxious about standing up to wealthy, entitled parents. I'm embarrassed to admit that I rolled over in that moment and said something like, oh yes, of course, right, sorry. But I promise that I spent the next 8 years remembering how I had failed my students in that moment. And that was the first and last time I let myself be steamrolled that way. I slowly but steadily learned how to respond to that kind of feedback in a way that respected the parents' opinions, but didn't infringe on my young patrons' rights. A few years later, I received my first and only formal challenge, a Roby Harris title, of course. Hi, Roby. Because a mom claimed that her daughter was traumatized after learning the names of her body parts and discovering what might happen to her during puberty. The child was so traumatized by this information that she looked for it in multiple titles, many times, all year during her class's checkout period. Even with a collection policy in my favor and an open-minded administration, it was still one of the most stressful, anxiety-inducing periods of my career. But I promise that I remember that you're not here to listen to me talk about being a librarian. You're librarians with similar stories. A lot of you have probably had far more harrowing experiences of censorship, challenges, unsupportive administrations, and the resulting chilling effects those elements have on your ability to do your job. I was asked to talk to you today as a recently banned author. So the next 2 paragraphs here are me summing up what happened, first in Murray, Utah, and then in Texas, but Peter Coyle summarized that for you so I can skip those paragraphs because it's just me saying the same thing. But I can tell you that it was a very stressful experience, and that despite getting some threatening emails and Twitter messages and finding an Amazon review for the book Call Me Max that calls me a pedophile, being the author in this situation is far easier for me, at least, than being the librarian or the teacher. I wasn't worried about getting fired because I don't have a job. I didn't have angry parents storming into my living room. I got support and sympathy from friends, family, a lot of strangers, and even Chelsea Clinton. But the challenge that I fielded in my library was something that I had to struggle through, mostly alone. But both experiences made me think a lot about the idea of censorship, whose name it's committed in, for what reasons, and under what justifications. And I'm sorry to go back to my library, but I spent a long time there. It made me think of my own role as censor and how I would have felt if my choices as a librarian had been met with such scrutiny. For example, before my first school year started, I went through the collection and I pulled every picture book I could find where an animal or child wore a stereotypical Indian feather, you know, like this sort of thing. I firmly believe that such depictions are dehumanizing, part and parcel of the larger white project of anti-Indigenous oppression. And while I was fed a steady diet of racist books as a child, I did not want to inflict that upon my students. In the winter of 2014, I weeded almost every book in the collection about the police, because in children's literature, nonfiction about the police always presents them as community helpers who keep good people safe, and that is inaccurate. Like I said, I was the only librarian without any real supervision, so no one knew what I was doing with the collection. I replaced the feather books with all the titles I could find by Indigenous authors. I tried to find books for children that provided a more thorough view of policing, but couldn't find any, so I kept 2 on the shelf for people who asked for them. Some of you may be wondering about the Horton in the room. There was still plenty of Dr. Seuss on the shelf, but I always did a unit on him with my 3rd and 4th graders, where we talked about his anti-Asian political cartoons, putting his work in a larger context and leaving them with more questions than answers. So you could say that I've been banned, I have refused to ban, and I have been a banner. And I've been wondering uncomfortably if I and many of my colleagues use the word censorship when we're describing choices we disagree with, and curation or weeding or collection management to describe actions we believe are right, and if the line between those two is not as bright as one might hope. Here are some disquieting similarities between me and the people who would keep my books from finding readers. We care deeply about children, both the ones in our lives and ones we don't know. We believe that the books children read can have significant impacts on their development in both positive and negative ways. We want them to learn about topics that we think are important, and we don't want them to come across images or ideas that we think are damaging. There are probably many other similarities between us, but these are some important ones. Now, I haven't forgotten that this is a celebration of the Intellectual Freedom Awards, and you could be forgiven for thinking that I'm using this opportunity to promote some sort of both sides argument, or rehash interrogations of moral relativism, or provide some cautionary tale about slippery slopes and how it's hard to know who is right in these sorts of situations. But at the risk of unduly influencing your intellectual freedom, I will tell you that I believe that in these instances, I am right, and that some people are wrong. Children should be allowed to learn about their bodies and what will happen to their bodies as they get older. Some people are trans, and that is a perfectly fine subject for children to learn about. It is wrong to remove children's books about LGBTQ people from a children's library, and it is right to fight back against any attempts to do so. I also believe that I'm correct in my conviction that blithely giving children books where other human beings are depicted as exotic or extinct subjects of the distant past, or an animalistic dress-up opportunity is a bad practice. I know that other people might think it's okay for children to have some unexamined exposure to racism, whether backgrounded or foregrounded, and that there's plenty of time in their development to undo early prejudices or trauma. I think that approach is misguided, and I want to have no part in it. I do not have longitudinal studies to back up my belief, but I don't know of studies that contradict it. But I wish that I had been given less as a child to unlearn as an adult. It might seem strange to use a celebration of intellectual freedom to tell you that I think I'm right and that other people are wrong, like a blunt tool, a battering ram of exposition, rather than the more delicate scalpel of persuasion. But I've also started to consider the idea that the accusation of censorship itself is a similarly blunt tool, one that can knock down closed doors as well as load-bearing walls, that it is a weapon that can be deployed by anyone toward any end, and in the scramble to defend against it, you might just end up blocking your own path forward. So while I do believe that I'm right about a lot of things, I will not try and convince you of that in this speech. I only got 10 minutes to talk after all, but I would like you to make an honest reckoning of your own beliefs and to notice how and when and where you put them into practice. What do you think is right? What do you think is wrong? In what ways are your choices in support of your beliefs? And in what ways are they in opposition? When is it important to be unbiased if such a thing exists, which it does not? And when are the stakes simply too high to allow for an equal representation of views? When is it acceptable to waver? And when must you stand firm? I know where my lines are, and I encourage you to determine where yours are as well before you are asked to cross them. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much to all of you who have spoken tonight, and to Kyle for helping us understand the importance of intellectual freedom for every member of our community, from the youngest child to the most senior citizen. I was very interested in Kyle's urging for us to reflect on our own value system, to be ready to stand up ourselves for what we believe in. Tonight, we have honored individuals and associations who've had the vision and courage to stand up for everyone's right to read and express ideas. Their courage offers us a clarion call for all of us to use our voices and our actions to ensure the intellectual freedom of every member of our community. We must not be silent. You can strengthen the power of all of our voices by donating to ALA's Merit Fund and by becoming a member of the Freedom to Read Foundation and the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable. Together, we can make a huge difference. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you have a grand evening.